Hi, Amy of Fashion Toppings here with part two of my blazer refashioning. And what I've done to prepare for today is I removed the shoulder pads. Look at the size of these things. These things are like monstrous. And I've already started working on one side just so that I could, be able to troubleshoot. And if I had any issues or anything, I was able to deal with that off camera. And then now I'm going to do the other side so that this side will be done just like I previously already did this side. Okay, blazers aren't the easiest things to work with, but especially one that has so much lining. This thing has interfacing throughout this entire thing, which was too difficult to take out. So I left it in, and all I did is I took a seam ripper and I removed the sleeve and its lining. So that's all I've done so far is just remove the lining of and the sleeve off of here and the shoulder pad. So now what we need to do is you can tell, let me get this squared on so you can see it. See how short the shoulder comes up here, but this shoulder is way out here. I shortened the shoulders. So, okay, the shoulders used to be 8 inches long. And to be able to match this shoulder is 2 3/4 inches long. This is 8 inches long. So I took a lot of length off. So I need to get a pin so I can mark it. And I'm going to mark my shoulder at 2 3/4 inches. Put a pin there so I know how far I need to take it up. And look at that. I'm taking that much off the shoulders. That's quite a bit. Which means since I am taking so much off, I do have to get inside the lining and I do need to take it in a little bit. So I'm going to first, so I got it marked. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to seam rip, or you can take a scissors to it. I'm going to seam rip my shoulder, right down the shoulder seam. Just put it right in the seam and pull. And do that all the way up to my pin. And that includes all that facing that's in there too. Separate it all. Okay, so now I have, see, a lot more ability to fold it under. We will cut off the excess material when we are done, but I'm going to fold that sleeve under all that excess material, and I'll cut it off, like I said, at the end. Just folding it all back and under. And I know there's more professional ways. People who are professional seamstresses are probably shrieking at what I'm doing. But for me, I do everything trial and error, and I try to find the easiest way to do something because I am not a professional. I do this as a hobby. And fold it under. See how big these armholes are? Humongous. That is why I'm now going to be cutting into my side seam, and I'm going to shrink up that armhole a little bit. But I'll have to take it in a little ways down just to get rid of some of this excess material. So next, to be able to get to my side seam, I need to seam rip some more. I need to separate my lining, which is fairly easy. You just run your seam ripper between the lining and your jacket hem. You can find a piece of thread to get it started. Okay, now I've separated my hem or my lining from my jacket. I just seam ripped right along the bottom, and I made it pretty wide because what I'm going to need to do is be able to reach in here because we're going to be taking in the side seams and we're going to turn it out inside out just a little bit. But before we do that, so I released the lining from the jacket right here. But in order for me to have an idea, if I am going to take it in order for me to have an idea, I needed to decide how big my armholes are going to be. So I just temporarily, I tucked all that material back, and then I just pinned it so it's out of the way. So all the material is inside, just to get it out of the way. And I took my sleeve and pinched it together right where I want it. And then I took a chalk marker and I marked on each side of the seam. Just marked on each side of the seam, just so that I can, a pin would fall out, I can tell where I want my new sleeve to be. So I'm pinching it together, and ouch, I'm just going to pin it. So I turn inside out. I have an idea of what I'm looking at. So, because right now it looks kind of funny, but we're going to take this in, and we're going to pay attention to these pockets. So, take it off, and I'm going to grab that inside seam, and I'm going to pull it out of my hole I just made in my lining. So you're pulling it out. This is going to be really hard to show you because of all this material being squeezed through a hole. See, my jacket looks funny? So I turned it inside out through that hole just so that I could see my side seam. And I can see where my pin is for my armhole. Pull it out so I can know what I'm looking at. There's my armhole right there. See, and then you get all this extra. Those are all the shoulders. Okay, so all I care about, this is the side seam running down the jacket. Here's that pocket that you can see. And like I said, hopefully this is going to work out showing you this because it is going to be kind of hard. So when I had it inside right and I pinched the sleeve hole to be as tight as I want it to be, and I put a pin in it, it actually created a start for me. That's how much I'm taking off this. See, here's the armhole right here. Big thing right here is the armhole. But I'm taking off that much off my sleeve because since I pinched and pinned it before I got started, when I was inside right, I could see how much I need to take in. Okay, so right where I squeeze my armhole to be smaller, I'm going to pin and then gradually transition that right back into the regular side seam. So hold it straight, and I'm just going to put pins in. Okay, so I'll show you what I've done. Does that make sense? Here is my side seam of the jacket. Here is my armhole. Okay, so here's my armhole right here. And here's my side seam of my jacket all the way down. And they have interfacing, black interfacing, that's why it looks different, through the entire front of this jacket. I couldn't have picked a more difficult jacket to work with. So what I did is I double checked where my little blue dots were, where I'd marked how much I wanted to squeeze my armpit shut to be so my armhole would be smaller. Made sure my two blue lines are lined up on the inside, and then I started pinning. Now I don't want to take a lot off the width of the jacket because I want that kind of little bit boxy look. So I'm going to be wearing this with leggings, and I have the little corset thing in the back. So this is basically all I'm doing is because I'm shrinking the armhole so much, I just need to slowly transition that new armhole into my side seam. So that's all I'm doing is a slow transition. So there is how much I'm shrinking in my armhole. And I just took the pins and gradually started pinning a straight line right back into my side seam. So I'm not taking that much off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to do a basting stitch right down my pins. Because since this weekend I did the other half of the jacket, I just need to then turn it back inside with the lining, back the way it's supposed to be, try it on, and make sure both sides look the same. So I'm just going to do a basting stitch real quick, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, obviously. Okay, so you can see the faint stitch. I just did the basting stitch. And you can see how it slowly transitions, it slowly transitions right back into my side seam. So now, you need to turn this back inside out. This is the most confusing part. Reach in, grab your armpit, pull it back out, and voila. Now, what you're going to be looking for, you are using a basting stitch. So what you're going to be looking for is that there's no puckering in the material. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is we're going to cut off some of this excess material. And you'll be able to do a hem. You're cutting the lining and the jacket. And I'm just cutting enough so that I'm able to do a rolled hem. Okay, now what I actually do, because I like to have all my lining and everything connected together, is you can run a stay stitch all along your armhole or basting stitch. Basically, that's going to attach your lining to your armhole opening to keep them even so you don't have so much moving around on you. It will just hold things together. It's like putting pins in. You don't have to worry about the pins falling out. Just run a basting stitch along your opening, just by the edge, so that you're grabbing your lining and your armhole opening, sticking them together, so you don't have so much movement of fabric. Now I'll run mine through the serger. I'm just going to run that whole thing through a serger, and it locks it in. So after you've done your basting stitch, so that everything's held together, nothing's sliding around, you're just going to do a double rolled hem. 1, 2, and then pin. And you're going to do that all the way around. Now, if it becomes too bulky, you don't really see the inside of the vest anyway because it's going to fit kind of snug. You can just do a large one fold. Just fold it once and then stitch around your armhole. Okay, so just hem your armhole because we already cut the shoulder up to where we need it. So take it to your sewing machine and do either a double fold, which I'm going to serge mine and fold mine afterwards. You're going to fold it once, fold it twice, and you'll have a nice finished edge. Or if you have bias tape, run bias tape around it, and that'll work as well. But I'm not going to make bias tape for this project. Okay, I went ahead and I serged. You can see there. I serged my rough edge. You can see right there. It's serged. I serged my lining and my arm sleeve together. And the tough thing about this, I wish I had interfacing here at the house, but I should be putting a little bit of interfacing or stabilizer in this back armhole. I don't have any, so I'm not going to do that, but technically you really should put something to stabilize the armhole because I can tell this is nice and stiff and smooth, and the back has a little bit of give to it. But I'm just doing a single rolled hem since I did serge my edge, and you're not going to really see the inside of the jacket. So I just did a single rolled hem. I just tucked under all the way around, just tucked under till it was nice and smooth. And so I pinned it, and my lining looks nice on the inside. And then I went ahead and looked at the back of the jacket, and granted, this will lay flat when I pin it. Actually, I got to button the jacket too. But the back, I measured them, and the back is even. I counted the amount of squares that are on here just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, edge, yes. So just to make sure everything's symmetrical. So now I'm going to run it to the sewing machine, and it's just a simple double rolled hem, but I'm doing a single rolled hem because of the amount of material I have in the front with that interfacing and then the lining and everything else that's in there. Granted, I don't have it in the back, it's only in the front, but because of that, it's just too hard to roll twice. So I'm just doing a single rolled hem. And if I want to, and I don't like the looks of it, if I want to, I can always go back and put in bias tape around the armholes that matches at a later date. But right now, I'm going to go and take this to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to run a straight stitch right around my opening. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be right back. And the only thing I have left to do is make that hood. Okay, so the sleeves are done. And the next thing to do, the only thing that didn't turn out on the sleeves is I am going to go back and get bias tape because I didn't have stabilizer. I'm going to try to iron it out, but it's a little flimsy. For some reason, the hem just feels flimsy. Unless you're feeling it, you don't know what I'm talking about. The front is nice and crisp and because it's got all that stabilizer in it. The back doesn't have any stabilizer in it or nothing, no support. And so it gives you a little bit of a wavy edge. So I will be going back and get bias tape at a later date, but I don't have any that matches this right now. I have black, but it's too thin. So the next step, I'm going to make the hood. So what I took is some muslin, some just cheap white fabric, if you have scrap fabric at home or anything, just to make your template for your hood, because you don't want to you don't want to draw right on your final project, because we're going to do some trial and error here. So I don't know if you remember from my last thrift haul, the t-shirt that has the built-in hood. So I laid this hood down laid it nice, folded it in half. See, here's the opening. So I put my hand, you have your seam up the top, put my hand in there, folded it nice and neat. like this, laid it down on some muslin and traced it. That's all I did. And to make sure that I like the size of the hood and everything, I took the hood for my hoodie, and so I cut out my hood with the muslin, 2 pieces, so you're on folded fabric because you want 2 identical pieces. Okay, so you took your hood, you traced it on a piece of muslin, then you cut it out. Okay, and here is my opening. This is just a patterns, just so I can practice before I cut my final fabric. And so I did it on muslin. So then you took your hood, here's my opening, bottom of this, and I just took a sewing machine and stitched a straight stitch all along the top of the hood. And then I turned it inside right and tried it on to make sure that it's going to lay smoothly. So I just want to make sure that the hood fits. It's nice and smooth, no like funky little shapes or anything out of it. So I made it out of muslin first. And then I took this muslin, laid it on my fabric that I want to use, and I'm lining my hood. So my hood's going to have a lining to it. It's going to be satin on the inside and black on the outside. And so I folded my outside, or my fabric that's going to be for the hood. I folded it in half, laid this on top, and cut right around it so that I had 2 pieces. So I'm going to make an exact image of this. Then I did it again with my lining fabric. That's up to you if you want to line your hood or not. I wanted a lined hood. And so I took my lining fabric out, folded it in half, and traced this on as well. And I did take pictures, so I'm sure I posted it either right before I started saying this or I'll post it now. But I did take pictures, and so I have my pieces for my hood. Next step. Okay, this is my lining is, see it's a silky material, and my outside fabric is just like a suiting, like you make a men's suit out of. So you're gonna lay your pieces together, right sides touching, not, I mean, your wrong side of your fabric is facing out. And see how this is the flat edge, that's the part that goes over my face, that my face comes out of. And so I'm gonna take this to the sewing machine. You can pin it first if you'd like. I'm gonna sew a straight stitch all along the top of the hood down the back, leaving, this is the front where your face comes out, and down here is where your neck is. So I'm just going to sew my 2 pieces together. Like I said, I'm going to sew starting at the top of the hood, down the back of your head, down to your neck. And so I'm just going to sew those 2 pieces together. I've already did it with my lining, and then I'll show you what's next. I got both my hoods made. So we are going to now take the regular hood and our lining, and we're going to put like sides together. So right now, as you can see, there's my wrong side of my fabric. I end up serging my edges, and this is the right side. I'm going to put it inside the hood so that right sides are together. Right sides facing each other. I'm going to pin the top seams together first. Okay. And then pin all the way down. All we're sewing is, we're going to pin is right around the face. Okay, and I'll show you in just a minute. Okay. So, as you can tell, here's the back of my head. Here's where my face would go. I've got the hood, the lining on the inside. It's nice and shiny. And the regular hood on the outside. Right sides are facing together. I am looking at the wrong side of the fabric. So now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm only going to do a straight stitch. Just right up the face line to the top of the head, and then back down. I have to finish pinning yet. Back down. So basically I'm just sewing the hood around the part that's going to be touching our face. So, and I'll show you why, because then when we turn it inside out or inside right, we already have a finished edge around our face, and we don't have to do any hemming. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I sewed along my face. I know it's black, it's hard to see. So now what we need to do is turn it inside right. And then tuck the hood inside. You will need to take this to the ironing board. You see, look at, I got the line side on the inside, and I got the finished fabric on the outside. And I've run out of time, and so keep watching, but I will be in another outfit because I'm going to finish this up tomorrow. Because right now what I need to do is I need to take this to the ironing board, iron all of my edges so they lay nice and smooth, and then I'll show you what to do next. It's going to require top stitching our seams to hold the lining and the hood nice and neat together, and then we're going to attach it onto the jacket, and then I'll put my ribbon back in the corset in the back, try it on, take a few pictures, and we'll be done. So I will be back in a different outfit on another day in the same video with the next steps for this project. Okay, I'm back, and let's finish tackling this hood. So I got it all ironed last night. I ironed it so that the lining stays on the inside, so that all you see on the outside is the actual suiting material that I used for the outside of the hood. So now what I'm going to do is, because I ironed it last night, I pinned it into place to make sure it stayed. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to top stitch. And the only reason I'm top stitching is I don't want the lining to peek out so that you can see it from the outside. I want the lining to stay on the inside. So what I'm going to do is take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to do a top stitch all along my opening around my face. And that's going to keep the lining tucked into the lining. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine real quick, and I'm just going to do a top stitch right along the opening of the face of my hood, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my top stitching done. As you can see, there's the top stitching right there. And then what that does is on the inside, see, it keeps the lining. You can see the outside of my hood and the lining on the inside. It keeps that lining from peeking out. So next thing, all we have to do is I need to attach it to my jacket. And what I'm going to do, since I have this opening at the end, see, that's where the two connected. We have the opening at the end. What you're going to do is kind of like when you do a channel and you pulled something through, and so then you have to close it back up. We're going to do the same thing. So here is my, I know, black on black. This is a really difficult video. So here's my lining right there, and then there's my suiting jacket. And this is the neckline. You're going to tuck in everything. Tuck it all in, folding in the raw edges. And we're going to hem it from the outside. So I've tucked it in. As you can see, so it looks like a sandwich. So I just tucked it in. And now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch right across all this opening that's been tucked in. I'm going to sew all the way across it. That's going to give me a finished edge. And then all we have to do is sew it to our neckline and then close up the hole in the lining, and we're done. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible because I'm running out of time. I do not want to hit that 30-minute mark. So, okay, let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, hair's flat. I'm keeping trying on this hood. Okay, I just want to show you how it turned out. See, I top stitched them together. Now it looks like I have a nice closed finish. There's my lining. And all I did is tucked it inside and stitched on the outside, did top stitch. Now, attaching the hood is really easy. We have our center back seam, and then we have our seam that goes around the collar. Now you would think, some people would think you just attach it with like that, so the hood is down. But then when you try to put the hood up, it's actually forcing against, it'll be forcing against the stitching. You'll be forcing against a folded seam, and I don't think it's going to lay nicely. So I'm going to attach mine in the on position. Okay? Taking my hood. I'm going to go up a little bit. There we go. I'm going to take my hood just as if I'd be wearing it. Okay, you have your center seam back here. You have your center back here, the seam, and then you have your collar seam right here. So we're going to take our hood, and we have our seam that goes up right along the top of our head. We have that seam. I'm going to make sure it's lined up with center back right there. Then I'm going to place it right on my collar seam here, there, and I'm going to pin it. So I'm going to pin it. Now I'm going to just follow right along that collar. The collar joins onto the jacket. I'm just going to place this on here. And when you're placing it on here, we have our top stitching right here, and you can see it right there, the top stitching. I'm laying that top stitching, I'm laying that right on the collar seam so I don't have a bunch of stitch marks, because I'm just going to top stitch right on top of that. Okay. And just pin all the way around, making sure your collar is up and out of the way. Just follow your collar, because all we're going to do is top stitch this puppy on there. Okay, so can you see what I'm doing here? I'm just top stitching the hood right on that collar line. So let me go ahead and finish pinning this on, and then when it's done, when I've got it all pinned on, simple as this, I'm taking it to the sewing machine and I'm just going to do a top stitch. I'm just going to do a top stitch right on my pin line, attaching the jacket and the hood together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back and we'll be done, except for just finishing up, closing up that lining at the bottom that we ripped open, but that's easy. And then, like I said, we'll be done and we'll take some pictures. Okay, so the hood is on. And as you can see, because we sewed from underneath the hood along this line, it lays nice. You don't see any stitch marks. See how nice it lays underneath the collar. And, okay. Another thing I've left to do is I need to buy bias tapes so I can get that. See the little curve in that one sleeve? The other sleeve didn't turn out that way, but this one did. So I'm going to buy some black bias tape that will be stiff and that will take a little bit of the waviness out of there. But I like how it's turning out. It's got the hoodie on there. I love the hoodie. Okay, wow, I'm up close. I just wanted to show you, now we have to close up our lining. Okay, so you have your natural fold for your hem, and you have your lining, and it naturally, when you pull on it, it's going to naturally want to go back the way it was. So I'm going to let it do it. So you just match it up, fold your lining, so your lining and your edge are nice and neat. And I'm just going to sew by thread, or sew by hand. You're going to sneak in between the lining and your hem, and you're just going to grab the lining and grab a little bit of the hem. Okay, and then you're going to want to tie a knot. You'll tie a knot at the end of your string so that the string won't go anywhere. And you're just going to keep grabbing lining, grabbing the inside of the hem, and you're going to just keep going back and forth. I know I can't do a close-up, and I apologize. My husband said he's going to get me a new camera sometime right after Christmas when the deals are going on. So close-ups that's why this video has been so difficult to do. I can't do any close-ups, so it's not been one of the best videos, but at least I'm getting my project done the way I want it. So you're just going to keep hand going inside, grabbing the lining, grabbing the hem, and attaching the two all the way down. So you're going to hand stitch it. It's going to take me a long time, so I will come back to that. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get this all, like I said, I'm going to get this all ironed up and going to go ahead and take some pictures. But I think I like how it turned out so far. Other than, like I said, I do need to put bias tape around the armholes just to give them a little more stability. But I like it. So there's my vest. And then it's kind of like business in the front, party in the back. Ooh. And it just turned to being 4 foot tall. Okay, okay, for some reason my mannequin just collapsed on me. So, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and try this on, take some pictures. I hope you like it. It's a fun little hoodie. And, well, this is Amy with Fashion Toppings, finishing up a sewing project, a refashioning project, a thrifted refashioning project. Okay, until next time, you have a great day.